Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Gilbert and I'm the CEO and co-founder of eMsika. We recently wrote an article titled The Modern Education System, and in that article we spoke about how one is no longer limited to the idea of sitting in a classroom at specific times for them to learn anything. Despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic being terrible and devastating, it made room for a lot of innovation across the world. One of them for us at eMsika is how we deliver information to farmers. You see, prior to the pandemic, we followed farmers to their residential areas to educate them on how to farm as a business, sometimes even having classes in the heat of the sun. Now, we get to reach a much wider audience who are young, old, experienced, and even aspiring farmers in the comfort of their homes or wherever they may choose to take their lessons from. Anyone is at liberty to attend any class at any time and study at their own pace using our recently launched platform, Apunzile.com. In full words, Mulimi Apunzile. On this platform, we get to work with professionals from different fields: agrochemicals, livestock, plant diseases, and so on. If you would love to be part of this global community like I do, you can access our e-learning platform by simply going to www.apunzile.com and pick from a wide range of programs that we have made available for you. We look forward to seeing you there. And please remember, no farmer, no food. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and welcome. It's yet another Sunday, and today it's even more interesting because we are discussing current affairs. We are discussing things that affect us. Please indicate those watching us via Facebook where you are watching us from, and those via Zoom, you can type in the comment section where you are so that we know how our I know that there are people that watch us from as far as in the United, the majority of Zambians in the program today, and particularly that we are discussing agriculture in the 2022 part of Sunday. We bring you these programs that cover almost all topics in agriculture. We bring you what is relevant and what is interesting and trending at the time. And for now, at least the budget is almost some days old. And it's time now that we understand really what is covered in the agriculture space from the budget. And to discuss this topic with us is the renowned financial analyst, Mambo Hamaundu. And I'm allowed today to call him by that name, but I must mention that he's my father-in-law. And with due respect, I'll call him Uncle Mambo, as I usually do. So he will come in to help us with that topic today, which is styled as spectacles of a farmer in the 2022 national budget. Please invite as many as you can so that we learn these things together into the agriculture farming season, because people still are harboring. I will introduce and welcome Uncle Mambo to the force so that he should be able to pick it up and do what he has prepared for us. Then I'll come in probably in the last 15 minutes or so to share also the conclusion and sum up what he may have presented. Uncle Mambo, over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Are we
Thank you,
there?
Zunga. Thank you. And good evening to everyone. I hope that we all had a pleasant day. Yeah, so we are discussing spectacles of a farmer in the 2022 national budget. I think quite an interesting theme by Mr. Simbalanga over there, you know, to say spectacles of a farmer. So I wish I had spectacles on myself so that it becomes a bit more appropriate. Anyhow, having said that, we probably start with the basics before we really delve into the details of the 2022 budget and what it has for the Zambian farmer. I think all of you might have or do have an appreciation of what a budget is. You know, at times we get bogged down by terminology and we tend to introduce complexities and complications in our minds to say, what really is this thing we're looking at? What is this budget? It's nothing complex. It's simply a plan. A budget is a plan. And in this instance, this is a national plan on how revenues will be collected. And from the revenues that will be collected, how they will be expended or utilized to advance the developmental agenda of the country. I think, in short, that is what the national budget really is. And what we must also appreciate as a people is that I think as a nation, we have many times thrived or we have been begging or wanting to see our country develop. We've always been saying that we are underdeveloped. We must diversify away from copper. We must go into agriculture. You know, we must go into energy, and other thematic areas really have been mentioned. So the good news at the end of the day is that over the last few years, I think generally as a country, we have come to a position where we have agreed to say the growth areas of our country are essentially 4 or 5 or somewhere around there. And one of the growth areas is the area we are going to discuss tonight, which is agriculture. But beyond agriculture, we have also identified tourism as a possible growth area, the mining industry as a growth area, and of course, to support all these or to anchor them is the energy sector. So back to the topic at hand, spectacles of a farmer in the 2022 budget. My presentation will be somewhat brief. I probably would not like to really bore you with too much detail in terms of numbers. But as we discuss, I think our attempt to look at particular questions, and as we proceed, you know, we'll also be looking at which ministry or ministries are responsible for agriculture. What are the broad objectives of these particular ministries? And then, of course, we'll go into what the budget provisions are. And after that, we'll probably look at the agri sector. Has it been insulated against COVID? Because we cannot talk about anything at the moment without really looking at how COVID has affected it. And then, of course, we'll also go down and probably look at aspects around the Constituency Development Fund and see how it does affect the agri sector. And of course, in the end, we shall be looking on the involvement of youths, the involvement of women, the involvement of people generally in agriculture. How do we couch all this as we advance an agenda for development? And I say as we advance an agenda for development because I hold the view that we have the collective responsibility each and every person who's tuned in this evening has the responsibility and is interested in ensuring that the agricultural sector develops, and not only the agricultural sector developing, by your action of participating, you are actually contributing towards national development, you're contributing towards the future of your children and children's children. So we begin our discussion with a question, what indeed is referred to as agriculture. So broadly speaking, from my perspective, agriculture in Zambia can basically be looked at from two perspectives. We have what can be known as crop agriculture or crop-related activities, and there's another section which is livestock and fishery. And even when you look at the way our ministries are structured, you'd find that we indeed have a Ministry of Agriculture whose primary responsibility is to look at the crop aspect of our agriculture sector. And one of their key objectives of the Ministry of Agriculture is to facilitate development and a diversified agriculture sector for enhanced income generation and food and nutrition security. So it's very important to note here that we are looking at diversification, we are looking at enhanced income generation, and we're also looking at food and nutritional security. That is what the Ministry of Agriculture looks at. Then the other component, which is the Ministry of Livestock, when you look at their strategy position, they are saying theirs is livestock production and productivity improvement. They also look at animal health services and technical support services. So when you look at all these particular aspects, it is a pointer that both ministries are important in terms of playing a facilitative role to ensure that you and I, to take agriculture as a business, agriculture as an activity which one can depend on their day-to-day life, are interested in. So this is the focus of these particular ministries. So in broad terms, that is really the objective of the ministries. So we quickly move on to the second or third aspect of our discussion. And we're looking at the budget in itself. We are looking at the numbers. What are the budget provisions? How much money has been set aside? What percentage is it of the national budget? Well, the answer is indeed contained in the budget which was presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance on the 29th of October, Dr. Stumbeko Musokotwani. So he has made a provision under the Ministry of Agriculture. He has provided an amount of 7.8 million. 7.8 million is, or rather 7.3 million is what he has provided for this year in 2022. Compared to last year, the budget was around 7.2, but he's slightly raised it up to 7.3. That is under the Ministry of Agriculture. But like I indicated, agriculture in Zambia has got two facets, crop and livestock. So for the crop section, we have at our disposal 7.3,336,328.903 as funds available for us in the sector to utilize for various activities. Then under the Ministry of Livestock and Fishery, the provision is sitting at 730 million, which is, I think, 50 million lower than what was provided last year. So in total, when we are looking at the total budget, direct budget for agriculture, it's actually sitting at slightly over 8 billion of the 173 billion budget, which represents somewhere slightly over 4% or thereabout in terms of allocation. So this is the money which you and I have to tap into. This is the money which you and I have to look at when we are looking at the potential that we need to turn into reality. This is the resource which can actually result in the economic prospects of our nation being enhanced. And when I'm talking of the economic prospects, you know, we are looking at it to say your individual effort, my individual effort, all our efforts collectively will actually yield or have potentially can result into an improved situation for our country. So I'll now go to the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm just trying to look for the paper which has the summaries of the amounts of money which have been provided. Like I indicated, we are sitting on a budget of 7.3 billion. And out of this money, you know, the way it has been broken down or decomposed is that 5.7 billion of it has been dedicated towards agriculture development and productivity. The next amount has been developed to agribusiness development and marketing. In there, we've been given around 67 million. National Food Reserve Management has been allocated a significant amount. I say significant because I'm comparing it to what it was last year. In last year's budget, we had 592 million, but it's now been raised to 1.046 billion. That is the amount of money which has been made available for National Food Reserves Management or nutrition. Agriculture standards and regulations has more or less remained the same when compared from last year. We are sitting just at around 17.7 million. And of course, what we all know and must appreciate is that they are human beings, they are individuals who play a supportive role. And the government has allocated under management and support services. You know, there's a provision of 452 million. So this is the money which has been made available. So I think for us as a people who are involved in agriculture, for those of you who've got an interest in crop farming, we must now look at the detail, for instance, on agriculture development and productivity. Where will this money be? Where can we weigh in as a people? How can we exploit these opportunities? Because numbers will just be numbers if we just sit by and say, well, it is a budget. But if we take decisive action, if we take steps, deliberate steps for us to go in and see what detail is there and see how we can turn this potential in reality, then we stand a better chance. Of course, the question can be asked to say, but this is merely a proposal. It has not yet been approved. I am hoping that Parliament will approve this budget. And if it does get approved, like I feel that it will, then we need to really look at this particular aspect. So under the agriculture development and productivity sector of the agriculture budget, you know, there's money amounting to 5.3 billion, which has been allocated to the Farmer Input Support Program. And this activity, I must mention that I think majority of you are aware what it encompasses. You know, this is where you get your fertilizer, you get your seed. You know, this is the e-voucher system. Though government now is actually saying that going forward, you know, we'll no longer have farming input support, so to say, the term now will be called an enhanced agricultural program, because government wants to look at the entire activity. They want to put the light on agriculture, because we have been saying that agriculture is the growth area of this country, and therefore government is saying, let us highlight this and give it importance, so that the people out there can actually move into these ventures and exploit these opportunities. I've noted also to say they have made a provision of around 70 million. That is for agriculture, crop production, and advisory services. There is realization to say that as a people, we need to have advisory services, because many a times, those of us who are slightly older, who are close to 50, over 50, our farming practices have been passed on to us by our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers. There's one way that we think when we're thinking of farming. If you're to ask a person who's my contemporary, a person who's in my age group, you ask them about farming, the first thing that might come in their mind will be maize, because that is what we have been brought up to understand and believe as farming. When you're talking of farming, you are simply saying, no, we need to grow maize, we need to grow groundnuts, and that's it. But we are progressing as a people, because we have all seen to say that as much as maize can provide food security, because it is an acceptable fact that majority of the citizens in this country depend on maize, because we all like good yansima, akabwadi or mshima. This is what keeps us going. So it's important that we actually farm this crop. It provides us a basis of survival. It provides us some kind of security, because it's often said that a hungry man is an angry man. So if we have food, then we know that at least we'll not have a lot of hungry men, and men, I'm using it in the context of both men and women, we'll not have people going around and throwing unnecessary tantrums and disrupting the farming activity, which is supposed to improve your life and my life, and eventually contribute towards the economic emancipation of our country. So a significant amount of money has been made there. And of course, we're now saying there's technical and advisory services which are there, wherein people will offer technical support. All we need to do is reach out, because many times you find that you have 1 hectare of land. 1 hectare of land, your productivity on that piece of land might not really be at the required level. You'd find that your operational efficiency is probably somewhere around 30–40%. But a person who accesses technical services, might enhance or actually enhance their productivity on 1 acre of land or 1 hectare of land, and produce far much more maize or food as compared to a person who does not have technical service. Because farming, as much as to some of us, it's a tradition, it's a practice, but there are people who have taken time, people who've gone to school to learn agricultural practices, to learn the idea of seed spacing, to learn the idea of distance between rows, to learn the idea of how much fertilizer is needed, to understand the soils, and so on and so forth, so that we really have a good crop and production is really, really enhanced. So government has actually introduced in this year's budget this particular aspect of advisory services. For agribusiness, I think the amount has remained more or less flat, because we have opportunities. It's just that probably we're not exploiting them. Another section which is worth noting under the crop section is that government has improved the amount of money available to agriculture research and development, wherein this year, 2021, the provision was just around 6 million. Government has increased it 3, 4 or 4 times to now to sit around 25 million. So this to me shows that there is realization to say research and development are key. They are critical for us to improve our fortunes, or the fortunes that we are getting from the agriculture sector. If we have to turn the agriculture sector into our next copper industry, it is important that we invest in research and development, because that is the future really at the end of the day. So essentially, I'm just going down quickly. You know, like I indicated, the strategic food reserve management has been allocated almost double the amount which they had from this year. This year it was 592 million. Next year it is envisaged that it will be slightly over 1 billion. 1 billion and 46 million is what has been allocated for the national strategic reserve management. And I think this is premised on the fact that we have seen that this year, you know, I think there were people, we were watching television, people in Eastern Province, people in, that is Lundazi, Petauke, were saying their crop is almost getting soaked because FRA had not yet bought their crop. There were similar complaints coming from Choma area going into Dundumwezi. And we know that between Dundumwezi and Petauke, that is where a significant amount of maize is grown. And like I indicated earlier on, we love our Nshima, and that is what really keeps us sane, so to say. So it is important, therefore important that government has actually doubled the amount to avoid having challenges, so that when they say we shall buy so many metric tons of maize, it should be bought so that people in those areas are not really affected in a negative manner and you know, begin to cause anxiety and worry, because a farmer needs to be comfortable. A farmer needs to ensure that when they grow their crop, there's almost a guaranteed market. That is what will keep the farmer really going at the end of the day. I go down to management and support services. I can see that there's been an enhanced improvement wherein district agriculture coordinating officers have been given money which they did not have. I think in the previous budget, they had no money, but they have now been given 16.4 million to coordinate their offices, to ensure that they improve the running of their offices as we strive to really get towards improving our economic fortunes from the agriculture sector. Then we now go to another sector of the agriculture, which is livestock, because what I've been talking to now is actually crop. We now go to fisheries and livestock. What are the numbers there? Like I indicated earlier on, there's estimated expenditure is sitting at 730 million. That is the amount of money which has been allocated to this particular sector to try and drive livestock production and productivity improvement, fisheries production and productivity improvement, animal health services, technical support services, and management and support services. You can see that there's an aspect of concentration on improvement. So when we look at livestock production and productivity improvement, there's been an increase of around 100 million, whereas last year, government, or this year rather, 2021, the 2021 budget had provided 204 million. For this year, or for 2022, the budget is anticipated to be around 303 million, which is a difference of about 99 or thereabout million kwacha. Fishery production and productivity, I can see that there's been a decline it was sitting at 397. It's now sitting at 139. And I would only assume that this is because we have probably reached saturation level in terms of learning the norms of production and productivity. And therefore, an amount has been allocated to just sustain the sector and keep on disseminating information so that people know that this is a possible growth area. This is an area where if you venture into, it also has a lot of potential in terms of earning resources for the country. And incidentally, just today, I think I did listen to the Minister of Livestock and Fishery indicating to say that we're importing over 80,000 metric tons of fish. So therein lies an opportunity for people of this country, people who are involved in fish. How can you ensure that you cut down? How can you ensure that you cut down on the levels of import, save the country forex, but in the process, benefit as an individual? You know, you'd be earning an income from selling fish because there is a lot of there's a lot of potential in terms of the market from that perspective. So that is that on fishery production and productivity. Then animal health services, that too has received an improved amount of money to spend. Last year, or in the 2021 budget, there was 75 million which was allocated. An extra 100 million has been given. The budget now is sitting at 175 million. 175 million is what has been allocated to animal health services. So this is also a realization to say that one of the biggest enemies for people involved in livestock, in the livestock sector, has been the disease of animal health. You know, you'd find that there's an outbreak of corridor disease, there's an outbreak of foot and mouth disease. Now we do not have sufficient vaccines and so on and so forth. And if we really drill down into this budget, we'll probably discover that, you know, under the animal health services, as an example, the increment of close to 100 million has really been necessitated by the desire to fight disease control. Because of this 175 million, 96 million will be used to fight disease control. Whereas in the previous budget, it was just sitting at around 3 million. And a further 1 million has been provided actually to look at animal health surveillance and early warning services, because at times we tend to wait till a disease hits us. But I think it's important that we do have the capability to survey, to carry out a surveillance, pick out early signs so that you are ready to deal with the disease if it has to come, or you have to take remedial measures, you know, ring fence the area, vaccinate the animals around a particular area before the disease goes into a center. So disease control becomes very, very paramount. And I've also seen that the vet services have been given a reasonable increase, but another one of significant note is the SESE control, which has actually been increased from just 500,000 kwacha to 5.1 million kwacha, because the SESE fly carries a lot of disease, and I know that people in Western Province do relate to this particular challenge. And finally, I think there is money which has been also put independent, which has not been existing before, into a fund called disease control. So again, this is related to fighting disease. So there is realization to say, if we have to benefit from the livestock sector, this subsector of agriculture, it is important that disease is kept in check. Because if disease is kept in check, we stand a chance of producing very good animals, which can be exported to the outside world. As things are now, with with corridor disease being heavily pronounced, with foot and mouth being within our midst, it becomes a challenge for us to exploit the outside market. You know, when you're looking at the European market, for instance, they do set standards, and you know, your animals have to go through so many checks for you just to be able to export. But if we can't fight basic things such as crop, you know, it is highly unlikely, I mean, it's such as a disease, it's highly unlikely that we could be able to exploit that market. But even before we go into the outside market, you know, the market abroad, we have markets within the sub-region. We have markets within the country which are not being fed to the maximum because of disease. I think Southern Province in the last number of years has actually suffered from bans in terms of stock movement. But over the last year or so, at least we have seen there's been a bit of relaxation. Of course, you have to go through a rigorous process wherein vet officers are involved, but that all is well. Though it causes delays, but it avoids transmission of disease from one area to another. So this aspect of disease control, like I indicated, becomes very, very important in terms of you know, the future prospects of the livestock industry, and therefore the future prospects of agriculture generally. So that is that on livestock really. And if we look at all these opportunities, you know, you are a person who has a number of goats, you are a person who has a number of chickens. What are you doing at your farm? Are you doing enough to ensure that you know, you exploit the market opportunities that are available? Are you doing enough to ensure that you answer some of the questions that, or some of the challenges that you face by exploiting the provisions of this budget? That is a question which you have to answer as a farmer, because you are the one who really has to drive the agenda. Government is playing a facilitative role. It is up to you and me to exploit this potential and turn it into reality, so that there's benefits arising from that potential. Personal benefits, community benefits, national benefits, and generally, you know, world benefits. And needless to say that, as we are discussing aspects around agriculture, when you look through the budget, I think one of the key areas that is being mentioned repeatedly is the aspect of caring for our environment. Environmental aspects cannot be downplayed anymore. I think it's important that as we plan to farm, you know, we must take into consideration smart practices. How do we ensure that our farming is sustainable? Our farming does not compromise the future of our ozone layer. How do we ensure that our farming practices do not result in deforestation? So these are some of the aspects that we need to look at. And of course, we could look at what is contained in the budget, for instance, of the green economy. I think it attempts to deal with some of these issues, so that really, at the end of the day, as we are saying, we need to enhance our agricultural activities. We need to ensure that we improve the productivity from crop. We improve the productivity from livestock. We improve productivity from fishery. It must not be done to the detriment of our environment. We need to ensure that as we do all these things, we take care of the environment. And another topical issue is, of course, as we are looking at all these things, COVID-19. How has it affected you as farmers? What is it that government is doing or is planning to do when you look at the budget, because I think it is clear, very clear and apparent that COVID-19 is with us, and it is with us for a protracted period of time. We did see that in 2020, it caused a lot of disruption, not just in the agriculture sector, in all sectors of our lives. We were forced to sit in one place, schools were closed, people were forced to operate from homes, people were forced to devise a system of shifts when it comes to work. It inhibited our movement. The tourism sector was affected terribly. I think the occupation, the room occupancy dropped because there are no tourists coming in. So the disease kept us in one place. So what is the solution to that? And is there an attempt by the national budget to take us back to a position where the challenges I've alluded to are being addressed? And the answer is yes. I think when you look at the budget, when you look at the health budget, there is a specific provision for buying of vaccines. And I think the president has also appointed a special advisor, on COVID-19. That for me is commitment enough to ensure that we deal with the aspect of COVID-19. But beyond the provisions that have been made in the budget by government, the question really is, what are our levels of commitment? What is your level of commitment? Those of you who have joined this broadcast, have we all been vaccinated? Have we encouraged our neighbors, our friends to get vaccinated? Because I think it's important that we do that, because if we are not vaccinated, it will still inhibit our movement. Because what good does it do for me, for instance, to get vaccinated alone in my home and the rest of my family members who are eligible for vaccination are not vaccinated? Because the person who's not vaccinated might actually host the virus, and it will cause further disruption. So I think I am supportive of the idea that government is calling for enhancement in vaccinations. I think the last update that we received from government, there was an indication that we're only about 6% of the eligible population has been vaccinated, which is not necessarily a good thing. Of course, prior to the elections, we were sitting at 3%. Now, after the elections, we have improved by 3 percentage points. We are sitting at 6%. So it's important that these numbers are improved, are up. So let us all go out there, get vaccinated, so that our movements are not restricted. And besides that, COVID-19 is a health issue. If I have COVID-19, will I be able to go onto my farm and till the ground? The answer is no. Will I go into my chicken run and ensure that I feed my chickens? The answer is no. Will I ensure that I go out and head my cattle or head my goats? The answer is no. Will I go out there and get involved in planting of oranges, avocados, lemons, having an orchard as an agri business? The answer is no. So we need to have a healthy population, and the challenge of our time is COVID-19. The challenge of the early 80s was HIV. HIV has been dealt with, in my view, quite conclusively, because when you compare to what was happening in the 80s, for those of us who had the privilege to live then, in the 80s, there was a lot of stigmatization. There was a lot of fear when a person is pronounced to be HIV positive, which is not the case now because of exploiting science, exploiting technology. So I think it's important that we actually deal with this particular aspect. We move down to another topical issue around agriculture, Constituency Development Fund. And I think this has brought quite a lot of excitement, has generated a lot of talk, discussions, and so on and so forth, with other people saying, do we have capacity in the constituency to look after these amounts of money? Of course, others say these are good amounts of money. So what is it that we can do as people who are involved in the agricultural sector? How can we tap into this 25.7 million constituency development fund? The answer is quite simple and straightforward. The fund will be administered by the council. The fund will be administered by a committee called Constituency Development Committee. In there, a number of people will be involved. I think people from civil society will be involved. People from the church will be involved. Ordinary people within the community will be involved. And when we're looking at ordinary people, and I'm now delving in particularly to an area which is involved in agricultural activities. You know, we are not looking at Lusaka Central, which has minimal agricultural activities. We are probably looking at Mukushi North, Mukushi South. We are probably looking at Chisamba. We are looking at Monze Central. How do we get in as people in these areas and tap into the potential that this 25.7 million amount of money is presenting? The response is, let us make ourselves available. Let us ensure that we are at the point where decisions are being discussed so that we can influence the direction of resource utilization within our constituencies, within our localities. You know, in some areas, you'd find that people cannot get involved in agriculture throughout the year because they, by and large, depend on rain-fed agriculture. But here's an opportunity. If you are in such an area and you know that the solution for you to get involved in agriculture throughout the year lies in having water sources, why do you not participate in the decision-making so that a number of boreholes or water points are established that will support your agriculture activities? So I think it's very, very important that we actually get involved in these particular, activities and really see to it that we can benefit. Another aspect which has been mentioned in the budget, the 2022 budget, is that schools will be free of charge. Government schools, people who send their children to government schools will not be required to pay school fees, will not be required to pay examination fees. Of course, a question can be asked to say, but how do you relate this to agriculture? Firstly, if you have a child who goes to a government school, the money which you would have used to pay school fees will be freed. So you now have a bit more extra available to invest in your agriculture activity. So that is one point. Secondly, your child who's going to school now and is being afforded an opportunity to go and learn, that particular child is being invested into by the country. Human capital is being developed, and human capital is extremely important when it comes to the developmental agenda of any family, any community, any country. Because with education, your levels of understanding are enhanced. You can make better quality decisions such that when people are deciding for you, you will be able to see that this thing might not give me a benefit now, but it will give me a benefit 10 years from now. And because of that, you will not object to it, you will support it. But if you are not properly educated, or if you're not educated at all, chances are you can be fighting something which is meant to make your future better. So education becomes very important. That's why I was saying beyond the 8 billion, which is available, there are other aspects which have been incorporated in this budget, which will ensure that they support the growth and development of agriculture. There are other soft properties, for instance. There's been talk from our government. I think the president is on record as having stated that he has had engagements with the president of Congo DR, to try and get a market for commodities. And we all know that there's quite some trade happening between Zambia and Congo. If all you need to do is just go to any place in Lusaka or anywhere in the country, really, you find people talking to say, no, next week I'll be taking my tomatoes to Kasumbalesa. No, I'll be taking my ducks, I'll be taking my chickens, I'll be taking my eggs. So we know that there is a huge market in Congo. There are approximately 50 million people who need to be fed, who need mealie meal, who need beef, who need goat meat, who need sheep meat, who need duck meat. There are a number of people in there who would probably be interested in consuming oranges, consuming lemons, consuming avocados. So the market is yearning. But all we need to do as a people is exploit this potential. And government has set an environment by engaging the government of Congo. And I think we did hear in the budget, the minister making a pronouncement to the effect that, some export duty has been waived to facilitate trade between Zambia and Congo. And I think there's also talk with Botswana, for instance, which buys a lot of its feed for animals from as far as Brazil, when potentially in Zambia, we can actually produce sufficient feedstock to supply into Botswana. So the challenge is on us as farmers. Let us exploit these opportunities. There are many, but all we need to do is, if we continue talking, if we continue sitting in our chairs, if we continue with a mentality that farming is a part-time activity, farming is meant to be an activity for one who's about to retire, we might not yield sufficient success. So I'm personally impressed and happy that government, through the budget and through the pronouncements that it is making, are actually trying to make these opportunities very apparent to us, so that farming can now be viewed as an activity which can actually result into you and I earning a livelihood. I've had discussions with a number of reasonably young people now who are saying, I'm just waiting for 1 or 2 deals to actualize, and I think I'll exit my formal job and concentrate on farming, because I'm of the view that I can actually make sufficient money for myself. And I think that is the way we should go, and such people must be encouraged. I speak like this. Some people might be saying, but are there no bad things in the budget? There could be 1 or 2, but I choose to look at the positive aspects of the budget and see to it that we exploit these opportunities for the betterment of our families, for the betterment of our communities. This is just like an exam. You go into an exam, very few people who have joined this podcast can actually say that they've gotten 100%. Many times you'd find that many of us post an average performance. You get 55%, you get 60%, and you pass. Others will go into 60s, 70s. But I want us now to move to a level where we treat agriculture to a point where we say, if it was in school, they're saying, guys, here I will not accept anything less than a distinction. So let us be distinct in our agriculture enterprise, and being distinct will only be accomplished if we take pragmatic steps to ensure that we realize this potential. Let us leave our offices for a while, or let us dedicate a reasonably good amount of time towards this farming activity and treat it as a business. And I can guarantee you that 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be saying, why was I wasting time doing what I was doing when the money is in agriculture, the money is in avocados, the money is in growing castor oil, the money is in growing soybeans. You know, let us not delay any further. I think we have procrastinated quite a lot. It is high time we made that move. And to really conclude, now I've seen that in the budget, I think government has also indicated that they have lifted some taxes to allow you and me, or some of us who have reached a level in terms of development of a farming enterprise, to import implements. They are saying there will be no taxes on particular implements. This is just to facilitate investment in the sector so that our operational efficiency becomes better. So I say to you, my brothers and sisters, let us exploit this opportunity. The budget of 2022 is quite supportive to the growth and development of agriculture. From my spectacles, which I've learned to Zunga, I am saying this is a good budget. Let us actualize the potential that is in there. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. And I must say that it's been very exciting following through the discussion, and it raises a lot of important aspects. Particularly, what I must point out is under the CDF, as said, it would be interesting to see youths grouping up together, coming up with cooperatives, and being supported by the Constituency Development Fund, because the members of the constituency must benefit from that. But of course, I know there are rules that are going to govern that, as provided for by regulations and law. So we need to see our constituencies developing, because these constituencies are located in our districts, and the councils are going to make sure that there is development in our districts. So that is a pure angle of decentralization. And there's no any other development that can take place apart from development at our local positions. Then I think he highlighted towards the end of his presentation the aspect of taxes. So now, as it were even anyway, importing things like tractors, there is no duty to them. And of course, other items that are going to be highlighted once the budget is approved. And once you know what you are going to put in the air, that's where now he has even mentioned the aspect that agriculture is a business. We don't just get into it as a matter of a hobby, where you just wake up as if it's going for any hobby activities, dancing, singing, and all that. No, we are in this to make a profit. So be able to utilize the opportunities that are given to us for us to be able to reach our greatest potential in our agriculture. Most people I know are getting into these aspects now full time. He has mentioned that people are stopping their formal employment. There's nothing wrong to work under a formal institution as an employee. But if you can afford in agriculture and supply and be able to meet the market and make profits for yourself, that is the best you can do, because you not only put food on your table, but you also be of use to the community where you're in, because you create employment. You'll be able to give out food. And whether you like it or not, if there's an aspect that has real and proper corporate social responsibilities, farming, wherever there is a farmer, there are people eating every day. So let us get involved in these things and be able to reach out to so many. The budget, as concluded, and I support, is actually a good budget for an agriculturalist, because it has literally it has literally given to us in our hands the things that we need to use. And it's up to you and me to seize the opportunity and be able to implement and put them to good use, so that by the end of 2022, we should be able to look back and say, I benefited from the provisions of the budget, and look forward to 2023. And we should be able now to project the trends. Most people just farm, they don't even know, they have no aspirations for the coming year. Like today, if you ask many where they've come from, what they have benefited, even from the government's directive in the budget and whatnot, very few know, because we don't follow these things. But if today there's a presentation on how to grow tomato, a lot of people want to grow. But all those come in because there is government intervention to make things better and easier for us. I will not speak much. We are almost into time up. We'll get one or two questions. Emmanuel, you can lead us through into questions so that we can attend to some of the questions. Then we see how far we can go.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you enjoyed the training, please do give us a thumbs up, and also please do share this video with all those that may want to join us. Right about now, I'd want you to also just comment down your questions in the comment section. Those who are in Zoom, the chat sections, drop your questions down below. We'll begin with a question from Chilubi. Farmers have and continue to be exploited at these markets, Soweto and Masala, and many other markets out there. Now, can we resolve this issue, because farmers continue to lose out? Even Kasumbalesa, the situation is similar and conditions are pathetic in terms of setting up and general environment. I think we can do better. Your views, please.
Well, that may not have been, sorry, maybe you can start, Uncle.
Yeah, well, I suppose really the question of farmers being exploited is something which is not new. It's something which indeed we have repeatedly heard. And I think some of the people who were responsible, I think it must be noted, like when you're looking at Masala, when you're looking at Soweto, you know, there were aspects of the political party cadres who would just go and tell a supplier, you go with your truckload of tomatoes, they simply tell you to say, bosses, leten kunon nishingef mwalabuela bwini. But I think that is no longer the case, at least in Lusaka. I know that at City Market, there are no cadres. I believe that even in Masala, the situation is under control. And I'm hoping that this could be extended to Kasumbalesa as well, so that ultimately the farmer gets to benefit. And as we are talking of benefits, I think it's important for farmers too, because at times we just go out there and complain to say we are being given a raw deal. Because I've noted to say at times as a farmer, you can go to a market and you want to sell a particular product and you'll not have a price for it. But afterwards you'll be complaining to say you've been exploited, you know, because of the information you get to hear from other people. So I think it will be important that as farmers, we must set a price for our goods, for whatever we are supplying. If we say, for me, I shall sell my cob of maize at 5 kwacha, that's fair enough. If somebody else comes and buys that cob of maize from you at 5 kwacha, and they sell it at 7 kwacha. That's their business as well. But for you, you must be happy that you have received what you think is the right price. So let us know at what price we'll be able to sell our things. And this can only be known by ensuring that in our operations as farming, we are formal. And when you are formal, you will take note of your costs and you know what it takes to produce a cob of maize, so that when you set the price, you know that you're making a profit. You can pick it up, Zunga.
Thank you. I wanted to say, similar to what you have said, if it's talking about cadres, I think I'm an active farmer. I'm in these markets almost every other week, like at our market here in Lusaka, Soweto, and in Kitwe. I think cadres have completely been cut off. Kasumbalesa, we don't have cadres also. Now, the challenge is there are obviously those agents that come in to help and do the help you with the work, obviously, that you may not be able to do. So you are only allowed to pay the council levies. And from the council levy, if you opt to use the agents, you can use the agents, and you have to pay a cost for that. But if not, you can do it yourself, which I hardly, which I highly doubt you would be able to do. So I think that has been curtailed, and now a farmer should be able to get what they want. Now, I needed to understand the continued harassment that that are there, because they indicated last time that if there will be anything that these people in these markets will be experiencing, we must be able to report. At Soweto, there's the police there that is permanently stationed there. Sokone, there are police there that are permanently stationed there. In Choma, I know there are police there that are stationed even in Livingstone. So we need to engage as farmers. And the challenge that is there is that mostly if we tolerate, one of us tolerates abuse, then everyone else will be abused. We need to stand our ground. We must know what our rights are and refuse certain things, join in. The way it used to happen previously, it was a sorry thing. You take your commodities to the market, you hardly realize even the little profit. Sometimes you take with a truck and not be able to pay for the service of transportation, because what you have realized is this and what the transporters are charging. And the majority of the money has gone to the cadres. But all that, I think, has been curtailed. So it's difficult to work through and organize the system in these markets for obvious reasons. Being an open market, people opt that the traders, the people that come to buy from us farmers, we want to negotiate the price. But if we may want to start putting up a floor price or a set price, it can never work. So the way the trucks are, if say tomato at Soweto, you find one day there will be even 40 trucks and trailers. So it's difficult to coordinate that way, but ourselves, we must be able to refuse. If you see cutters, report them, then we move out. So we shouldn't still have problems now of complaining about exploitation and being treated badly and that. So I think that's what I wanted to say. Thank you. Emmanuel?
Thank you very much, sir. Also have another one. Simply put, what opportunities does this budget offer the livestock farmers?
Well, livestock is broad, but simply put, there's an element of improved production and productivity. So people in the livestock farming sector, I think you now probably have more interaction with technocrats who can provide you with information how to improve productivity of your animals. For instance, if you've got cattle, why should you have a female cattle which does not give you calves, you should be asking yourselves questions, say, what is the challenge here? So I think if you engage the technocrats, like they will be made available now, you stand a better chance of improving your productivities. And I think I did see somewhere in the budget where there's an aspect of pasture management which is being brought into, because this is something which we did not really consider that much in the traditional method of farming. But I think it's been brought into the budget because there's realization that nutrition of animals or nutrition of livestock is very important to support production and productivity. So these are opportunities which are available in the budget, and that is the benefit one can get from the budget for 2022.
Yeah, and also you mentioned the aspect of research and the aspect of vaccines. A huge amount allocated to these vaccines for the diseases for livestock. That's a benefit, because if you curtail diseases in a particular area and you do research in some of these things, you are improving. Firstly, it could be genetic of the livestock themselves. If it's goats, if it's the chickens, if it's the cattle, or whatever other livestock that we may be talking about. Because mainly research goes to do with how to improve genes, how to come up with certain vaccines that will help curtail certain ill sicknesses. And also, as you know, Southern Province has been ravaged by corridor disease, the foot and mouth, and many other sicknesses. But at this time, there's been allocation specifically to handle that aspect, which actually should be able to count towards the benefit of a livestock farmer. Without that, your animals will continue dying. The ban will still be there. You actually it's even going to affect the market, because people want to buy healthy animals. So if they hear in Zambia there's foot and mouth, then it ultimately affects customers that are able to purchase some animals. There's been a ban on movement for animals for quite a long time. Those from Southern, those that bought animals from Southern, they are able to move them even to other areas. Those that have relocated to other areas, they are able to move them because of these sicknesses. But now, if assuming the budget is approved and we have now an improved allocation for vaccines, for medicine, for chemicals or whatever, that now will be brought under control, and there will be improvement. Similarly, also to research, I think that should count as a benefit. Emmanuel, any other question?
Yes, we do.
Yes,
we do. The next question is from Gift from Facebook. Also, guidance in the budget. Is there any employing of extension workers to bridge the gap between the farmer ratio? Because we have few extension officers looking after big numbers of farmers, hence information reaching farmers in delay.
Okay, I think for that one, I might not say whether there is indeed provision to employ more farmers, but I think when I was looking at the budget for livestock, I did note that there's an amount of money which has been allocated to enhance coordination activities. So that means the offices at the district need to run a bit more efficiently. So one can only suppose that that is actually meant to ensure that there's operational efficiency, to ensure that more and more farmers are reached. And at times we have, as farmers, we have a challenge ourselves, because we have it in our minds to say, when you go to the offices in these ministries, they are unavailable. Just because you went there once and you found that they were not available, it has become a norm, and word just goes round to a point where you'd find that officers will be seated, in the office instead of them going in the field, because we are not utilizing them. So I think for me, it would be important that even if we do not have a good ratio in terms of farmer extension officers. It is important that we utilize the people who are available to the maximum. If it means that these officers have to work instead of 8 hours, they have to work for 10 hours, let it be so. We must utilize them because that's what they were employed to do. And ultimately, if as a people, we are using the knowledge and information that is being passed on to us by these extension officers, them who have extra motivation, there is success in their area because frankly speaking, some of the people do not have job satisfaction because they're underutilized. But if we begin to utilize them and the results become very apparent, I think that if I was an extension officer, I would proudly put in a 13, 14-hour shift and still get a pay for 8 hours because I'll be encouraged by the productivity that I'm seeing within my area, because work must not just be about getting paid. You must also see results, and just getting good results can actually give you satisfaction as a person. So let us try and utilize them to the maximum. And of course, if there are people who are not, or if there are officers which are overwhelmed, I think that the district agricultural officers, are given liberty to recommend, they would write recommendations to the head office or to the province to say, we need extra staff. And with the aspect of constituency development fund coming in as well, I think that localized workshops can be conducted so that in instances where there's an overwhelming demand, the people within the agricultural ministry can pass on some of the knowledge to the local farmers so that you do not really at the end of the day have to go to the district office to seek help, but the district office would have empowered you by educating community leaders within your locality. So I think that is my perspective on that one.
Yeah, I want to understand also the question from two aspects. Firstly, it might be a question asked by a graduate or a graduate, one who has just finished school and is probably saying, are we going to get employed? Then the second aspect is from the farmer's perspective. We have so much that we don't know, or that is going wrong, or that we are doing doubtfully. And we need an extension officer to come and teach us. So in the first perspective of one who has just graduated, ours is to look to getting practical with the knowledge that we have gained. I've seen a lot of consultants that are teaming up and reaching out at a fee to farmers, because most of the people now are getting into agriculture. So whether the government is going to employ or not, which is actually, like it has been said, not very clear from the budget, the way it came out clear for teachers and the healthy providers. We are hoping that, of course, they may get one or two, or at least in the next budget, they can prioritize also 30,000 agriculture extension officers. But that, since it was not clear, your role is to team up with those that are already in this and be able to offer a service. Agriculture, like nursing and the teaching, must be a calling. When you see things happening well, you must be able to rejoice, because there's no satisfaction with the money that you get as a salary and the crops or animals are not doing fine. So that is on the one aspect. Then speaking for the farm, growing up, some of us, we were visited almost every week by an agriculture extension officer, if not an agriculture extension, at least a vet assistant or a forestry assistant. And at our communities, we would organize ourselves young children, women especially, they would be dancing and be rejoicing. If it's harvest time, if it's planting, they'll come and teach us about that. Now, the aspect of doing all that thing was coming from the communities and informing the agriculture extension officers, the vets, the forestry people, etc., that we want you to come and talk to us about it, women and agriculture, about youth and agriculture. So I think it's something that must be initiated by us agriculture people, us farmers. Come up together in that community, look for the need. Is it armyworms? How do we deal with them? Get to the extension officer. They cannot refuse. They'll obviously give us a date and they'll come and teach and talk to us. Like it has been said, the numbers are indeed very, 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 the ratio is quite disturbing because now the number of farmers has increased, but the government has not employed the extension officers in a long time. So we don't expect the delivery to be the same, but us as farmers, we can do something about it. We can do something about it, organize ourselves, invite the extension officers, attend workshops. What we learn, let's go and disseminate. And then in so doing, we are removing the ignorance from our heads and will be meaningful farmers, and not just farmers that look up to money, but farmers that look up to a healthy produce. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, sir. We also have another one. Why can't we have grain banks like South Africa? Those grainies in Chisamba were meant for those things. Then we also have another one. How does one get involved as an ordinary citizen farmer in the council in the decision making vis-a-vis the budget?
The first question is not very clear. Is it granaries, storage grains which are being looked at?
Yes.
I suppose if that is the case, yeah, okay. If that is the case, then I suppose that it's really a question of planning on where to put these granaries. It's sometimes production necessitates placement of certain things in certain areas. So if we begin to produce, ultimately, there will be a number of points which will be designated for storage of grains. It might not necessarily be the South African style, but what will be important is that the crop that we harvest does not need to go to waste. So it must be looked after properly. And because of that, measures will definitely be put in place. We have quite a number of competent people sitting in these ministries who are trained specifically to handle these aspects. But because we have taken agriculture sometimes as a pastime, we haven't given them impetus to move in and provide these solutions. But I think it's something worth noting. And I think even as people who are involved in these activities, there will be no harm in visiting the district agricultural officers to just inquire and see what their plans are, because in the budget under management and support services, I believe that these are some of the things that really have to be looked at in terms of protecting the crop, protecting the harvest, and ensuring that there's food security and nutritional requirements are taken care of. And the second question really relates to how do you get involved? There are many ways of engaging when you're looking at getting involved in the decision-making process. You might not necessarily be a member of the Ward Development Committee or Constituency Development Committee, but in your own way, if you show interest to say you are interested in the development agenda of the area you live in, people on their own will identify you as one who's interested. And I need to mention this here, that the committees are actually empowered by law to call any person who they deem to be knowledgeable on a particular subject matter to shed more light, where they have limitations in terms of knowledge. So you can get involved by actually being part of the Constituency Development Committee or Ward Development Committee, but these are positions which are nominated. But if you are nominated, I'm sure if you are not nominated, I'm sure that you would know a person or two who are nominated, and you'd pass on this information. And there is no harm in you putting your concerns in writing and walking to the council offices and submit them there to say, Council, I'm aware that you are the ones who are running the Constituency Development Fund. You are the ones who are charged with operationalizing these matters. So I have these concerns. So at an opportune time, if this particular subject that you have presented to the council is being discussed, I'm sure that the people at the council would pass on the message to the people in the development committee, and if need be, you can actually be called to come and help raise or heighten the concern that you have. And if you have any solutions, you can make those recommendations, because remember, we are trying to move towards decentralization, and decentralization entails that decisions must not be made at the center. They must be made at the lowest possible level within the community. And if it can be done at ward level, good enough. If it's done at constituency level, good enough. At least we are moving from decisions which are being made at national level, because when you are sitting at the top, you might not have good sight of what is happening down there. But when you're down there, you've got a better vision, and the people at top will merely guide you to say, yes, you have noted that that is a good challenge you've identified, and it probably needs redressing. But the people at top will probably only tell you to say, you are only encumbered or limited because the resource envelope is so much. But let us then work within this resource envelope. But your point is noted, and it can be considered as people go into the future. I think that is how budgets are developed. That is how an area can be developed. That is how you can participate in ensuring that you drive the developmental agenda of your area.
Okay, I think that has been handled. Safe to say, we need to drive to a point where we should be able to be comfortable as farmers that come what may at any given time, our granary or our grains that we have harvested for a particular year are safely kept, and should the prices go down or up, we are able to record them, sell them out, and be able to make a profit, both either at the individual or corporate, even at the national level. I think that is the basis of having granaries, having where to keep these stock. It could be organized at either of these levels. But you will notice that I think we have been very bad at that, and we have not done that in a long time. Even at individual levels, most people, by the time it is getting to October, will have finished our maize. I don't know why we don't plan that way, but we need to have, we need to start developing it as an and as a must, because it ensures food security at household level, at community level, at national level. You need to be able to say we have a reserve that we have kept the food for the nation, for the family, that at any given time we will not run out of it. We should be able, even when someone is sick, you should be able to call from your reserves, sell and be of, let that grain be of meaning to your household, to your community, to the nation. But at the rate we are going, it's quite alarming, and it's we really need to focus on that so that it serves its purpose. I think that's what we can. Emmanuel, how many other questions? We are running out of time.
No, that was the last one.
Okay, so mine remains to thank you all on Facebook, on Zoom. It has been a wonderful time, and we are grateful that you continue following us. Let's look forward to next week's topic, Sunday, same time. From Zunga Farms, we say thank you, and in a special way, we want to say our thanks to our guest tonight, Mr. Mambo Hamaundu. You have been so eloquent. You have really delivered to our expectation, if not above our expectation. And I think our knowledge now for the budget in terms of our agriculture spectacles has changed. Our perception will be different. We'll go out there as the agribusiness oriented individuals, not just people who farm out of traditional practices, but people who have a profit at heart, people who want to gain from cultivating. There's money in the soil, and this money is what we need. And it's this money that we need to tap from the soil, because from the soil comes every other thing, because it's the genesis of everything. And now I'll ask for the last words of Mr. Hamaundu.
Well, I don't think I've got much to say, really. Suffice to say that I'm glad that I've spent the last 1.5 hours going into 2 hours interacting with farmers who I believe, have this passion. It's not easy for people to buy bundles. I know you advertised it as free, but for somebody to join this this discussion, they need to have bundles on their phone. There are competing needs. Others would have wanted to use their bundles to do something else. But the fact that they have decided to say, let us listen into this discussion, for me, it gives me comfort that people are placing importance on what ought to be important. And even from my perspective, as we discuss, as we interact, it also gives me a better perspective. It gives me a better understanding of what people out there, are thinking and the challenges that they are going through. So it also makes me a better person. So this interaction, I think, has built both myself and yourselves. And for that, I want to say thank you for eMsika for hosting us. Thank you for Zunga Farms for having invited me to be a guest speaker. All I can say is God bless you, and I love you all. Have a good night.
Emmanuel, you can close it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on this wonderful training. We hope that you got value out of this training. We do this because we want to give you the value that we know that we have, and we want to share it with you so that we can also go out there and also share it with others and also grow your crops and yield much. We also want you to also like our Facebook page, which you are watching us from, Zunga Simbalanga, eMsika Services Limited, and also Mulimi Apunzile. Also check out our e-commerce platform, which is eMsika.com, where you can buy all your farm inputs for your farming season. And also check out our website, our e-learning platform, which is apunzile.com, where you can find this course and many courses right there. Please do stick around this week. We'll be advertising trainings, which will be happening in the month of November and also December. We also want you to also please give us love on YouTube, which is eMsika Services. Please do watch us there. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful week. And please do remember, no farmer, no food. Good night and God bless.